Okay, this video we're going to see my engine taken out of the bike and stripped down to try and fix a gearbox fault. It was making a very odd noise last meeting. As you can see, the fairing mounts are very simple. A couple of little mountings either side at the top there. R-clip that fits on a post sticking out the side mounted on there. And down the bottom there. You'll see there's quite a bit of rubber under the tank. The tank sometimes vibrates on the frame, which will make it crack, so you have to be essential that it can't touch. It does take a bit of filling with some time. Okay, there's the engine in all its glory. Personally, I think it looks absolutely beautiful. So what we're going to do first is take off the exhaust pipes, which are just spring mounted at the front and bolted there, and take off the carburetors, the chain, and of course, as T20 owners will know, that pesky clutch cable which comes up here, because the clutch cable is mounted to the clutch casing and you can't take it off without taking that cover off. Okay, there's the engine. Let's get stripping. Okay, I've taken off the exhaust, the carburetor, clutch cables in position ready to come off. You can modify the casing so you can take the clutch cable off independently, something I haven't yet done. Carburetors are off. You can see the slides hanging there. I've taken the plugs out to give a little bit more room at the top. So you can see the engine mountings, there's my rubber mountings, which you can see on my website in far more detail. Tells you exactly what I did. And then around the other side, here's the Rex ignition system, which has been very good indeed. 10 years I've had 2 different stator plates, I think that's all. Very good indeed. Rex is very helpful. So there's my engine. So what I'm going to do now is take the 2 engine mounting bolts out, one at the back and the one at the front. There isn't one at the bottom on this. I've done away with it. You don't need it when you do the rubber mounting. And then I'll put the engine on the bench and we can start the stripping. Okay, here's my engine on the bench, ready to start stripping. You'll see I've put the carburetors back on. One of the things I wanted to show was just how close they are to the barrel. The back of the barrel has been machined some of the fins off quite a fair bit there, with a manifold fitted on. There is a very small difference, only about 15mm or so, from the top of the carburetor to the back of the barrel. You want them as close as you can, the downdraft. It also means that the carburetors clear the casting. Otherwise, here, where you can see I'm touching here, the carburetor touches there, and it touches here as well, and you struggle getting them in. You get them close, angled up, and it fits perfectly. Here's the head. I've loosened the bolts already, as you can see. These are 7 of them are chromed. They were all chromed. One of them fell out at Mallory Park. I never did find it. The reason they're chromed is when I was building this bike, there was a whole load of rusty ones in my spares, and 8 that somebody in the past had chromed who I'd bought some spares off. So that's the ones I used. Okay, there you can see the centre plug. The heads look just like standard. Let's pull one off and have a little look. Okay, there's the piston. Looks in fairly good condition. And let's have a look at the other one. That looks in nice condition too. Let's just pull those up to the top. That one up to the top. Now you'll notice I've got gaskets on these. I never used to use gaskets. I'm running Nickersil barrels. But as I've had them re-Nickersiled, they always give them a quick little touch up on the top surface, and the heads kept getting closer and closer to the pistons until after 3 Nickersils I had to run head gaskets. Okay, I'm going to have the barrels off and the clutch cover off, and you can have a look inside the barrels. Okay, the clutch cover's off now, and you can see my straight cut primary gears. They're available from Nova Engineering. They're an absolute must for a race bike. They are very high quality. You can still get the rivets to rivet to the clutch basket from Crooks, because you have to just replace 6 rivets. And also, if you look carefully behind the primary gear, the front one, you'll notice the very large seal. That of course is because this engine has got a TZ 350 spec crankshaft fitted, as again you can see on my website, and you can see I've just got 2 little nuts with washers to stop the seal popping out, because it does if you don't have them on. and you can see the primer is very nicely there. And with a 4-bearing crank, you also have to drill some holes. You can see one there above the selector to connect the clutch cover to the inside. On the other side, if I turn the engine round, you can see here again I've taken the ignition system off, and again you can see the influence of the TZ, TZ seal fitting on there nicely. And there of course is a rotor, which I'll leave on the crank. There's no need to take that off. I've taken the ignition off. Okay, let's take the barrels off time. Okay, I've got the barrels off now. As you can see, there is the rather huge inlet ports, and you'll notice the gasket is just a single one-piece gasket. It's a bit hard, not sure if you can see there. It's just one gasket all the way across. It's stuck down a little bit at the moment. I use non-binding, non-hardening gasket compound there, blue Hylamar. I never used to use anything, but the gasket's a bit warm. That's a one-piece aluminium gasket going straight across for 2 parts. Here's the barrels. You can see I've still got the gasket on. That's where you can see some kind of the port. As you can see, there's a pretty decent sized inlet port, and the exhaust is rather large too. And here, to give you some idea of what's going on, again there's my barrels. If you want more details on the barrels, I suggest you contact Mr. Lee Gorley, who will tune you a set. You can see they're aluminium liners. The steel liners have been removed. These are all aluminium, and that has been replaced, nickel-sealed to run the Honda CR125 pistons. These have got a 15mm pin, not the 14mm, which is standard on the Suzukis, because of course with the TZ type crank with the TZ rods, they run a 16mm gudgeon pin. But if you use the correct small end bearing, you can actually use 15mm gudgeon pins, and that allows you a much greater range of pistons. You can use YZs or CRs or all kinds of things. So that's what it looks like. Now we're going to strip the engine down, and for those of you familiar with T20 you'll know there are rather a lot of bolts. I think it's 19, and these are numbered. These bolts here you can see, the little M10s, oh, that's not the best quality here, you can tell I haven't cleaned this. They have got numbers, and you undo them. I think you can see number 12 there, can you? And you should undo them from the highest number first. There's all the ones on the top here, the little 10mm head ones, M6s. There are 2 at the front underneath, just down there, and underneath you have the M8 12mm head bolts, of which there are 6 big bolts underneath the front. On the later crankcases there is actually another little M6 underneath, which many people miss. You're talking after engine number about 50,000, T50,000 I believe, but it's underneath, round about here somewhere, which you get from underneath. Please check carefully when you're trying to strip it down. Okay, the time's come to undo all these nuts and bolts and have a little look inside to find out what this very strange noise is. Well, I've loosened all the bolts on the top casing by half a turn. I loosened all the ones on the bottom casing by half a turn. Then turned it over and took all the top ones out. And as you can see, there are 2 small little M6 ones there, and the 6 bigger M8 ones. That's the front drain plug, that one that's wired up. If you've got the 3-bearing crank, when you change oil you need to change that. Many people get mixed up on these 3 bolts. The oiling on the Suzuki is very odd. This one here is the indent plunger on the gearbox selector drum. And actually a little tip, if you're jumping out of gear a lot, put a little nut behind the spring to make it have a little bit more tension. It's surprising the difference it makes. And these 2 drain bolts are for your gearbox area and for your clutch casing, but of course on my engine and any 4-bearing cranks that'll be one area, and I rarely undo those. I normally just take the clutch casing off and drain it that way. Bit messy, but it saves rewiring them all up. Of course they have to be wired up for racing. Don't forget, if you've got the later casings after about T50,000, there is another nut in this area, I can't remember which side it is, which you have to undo. It's an extra one, which isn't on any of the early Suzukis. So there it is now. I've loosened all the bolts. I've given it a bit of a whack gently with a rubber mallet. You do not ever prise it apart with a screwdriver, and sadly most cases of T20s that I come across, and I've come across many, have been butchered in the past by people fitting the cranks wrong, tightening wrong bolts in the wrong holes, breaking the casings left, right and centre. So I'm going to turn it upside down, take it off, and then we'll have a little look inside, see if we can find what the problem is. Okay, there we have it, my stripped engine. There's the top casing. Actually the crankshaft was stuck to the top case and I've removed it there. You can see mine is quite modified. You've got the openings which are viewed on my website. You can see on my website for the oil flow, and you can see it's also much bigger bearing space because this has been line bored out. There's a small kickstart shaft blocking plug, because of course you don't have a kickstart shaft in the back. And here's the actual engine. That's of course where the kickstart shaft would go. You don't have that. There's my gearbox. There's the TZ spec crank. All very, very close fit, as you can see. Fits very nicely indeed, with the very large bearings over there. Incidentally, many people, when they try to take the clutch off, you don't need to for this, or to take the primer nut off, you don't have to when you're stripping the engine, but do all kinds of damage to the engine by putting things under the pistons, bending the conrods. What you should use, and I have in my toolbox at all times, is a simple gear, a spare gear, which as we can see, we can just put in place there, and that locks the two gears together. So whenever you're trying to turn one nut or the other, that works. It works with the standard gears as well, the bevel cut gears. You just need to spare one of those. Don't put a screwdriver in there. There's a clutch basket, which unfortunately the little tongs, these parts occasionally snap off when you're racing. A solution is to put a big ring all the way around the outside to stop the sort of moving out and bending out of these things. I haven't done that yet, but that is my last good clutch basket. All my other ones are broken. I think I may well have to. So there you are. That's how to strip the Suzuki T20 engine. It gives you an insight into my racing engine if you're interested in building something like this yourself. And I hope you found that useful. And a later video I'll show you how to build things back up. If you're doing a road version it's slightly different, but I'm sure you'll find most of the techniques very similar. Okay, hope that was useful.